Hey all, and welcome back to my channel. So today I was just guided to walk you through the declaration of war. So essentially the United States of America was forced into a declaration of war against Donald J. Trump due to war crimes that were committed against our country and its citizens. Part of the declaration of war is that there are no more trials. What does that mean? It means that our highest court, the Supreme Court, was infiltrated by foreign enemies. Justice Kavanaugh was compromised by Russian oligarch Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov. And Amy Barrett was compromised by a cult called the People of Praise. And their ideals are not in alignment with the Constitution and its laws. So these two specific judges were ordered to be removed from the Supreme Court, including Justice Gorsuch, because I believe he replaced a justice who mysteriously died on a Texas ranch, and he was originally from New Jersey. Now, Clarence Thomas was also a victim of Russian interference and collusion with payoffs and bribes. So because the highest court, the Supreme Court, has been infiltrated, there are no more trials. So that is why we have not gotten justice, okay, for some of the latest trials that have gone on. Now, in May, the commands on the back end that went out against P. Diddy was that he was sentenced to death, okay? And now, in hindsight, you can see that he actually never got sentenced to serve a prison sentence, okay? And so that's why he was already ordered, okay, to be killed on the back end, because they knew that. So these are staged and bought trials that have been going on in Manhattan, okay, to make you believe we're going to have justice. This is something that this group is known for. I'm hearing Notorious, and they're bringing up Notorious B.I.G. right now. So this is something this group is known for. And they get off on it. I was also getting messages around Luigi Mangione that he was a staged, I'm hearing asset, okay? Or Rasset. I don't know if he was Russian mafia staged, but he was a full-on job. That's why he looks a certain way. I don't know if you've noticed, like, they did kind of like an event where they show him wearing, you know, his orange prison suit, and he's all buff and he's looking all hot. That is like a staged event, okay? I'm hearing it's like a Russian propaganda type of event. It was specifically put in place to distract us from what's really going on. That would go under the category of a chaos agent who actually stages events to create chaos, to take our minds away from what's really happening on U.S. soil. It's a distraction, okay? So these were all stage events. Now, did that CEO, I believe his name was Brian from Minnesota, really die? I'm not sure if he actually really died. I have the hermit reverse. Like, from what I gather, this is just something that this group does, and they get off on it, okay? They really get off on creating these types of staged events in the media. You know, it's kind of like Luigi will go in, or they'll make it look like he's going into a prison cell for 6 months, and then they'll get him out. You know, it's like that kind of a thing. In fact, when I saw him walking, I recognized an energy around him that's also around me as well. It's Manhattan Mafia. Okay, that's what's connected to him. Now, in terms of these other events, because now we've witnessed another event happening in connection to Blackstone and the NFL, I don't know if this is an actual real event or if it's a staged event. It just seems like when I saw it happening, I was like, oh, it's another chaos event. It's just something to distract us. So it's going to bring our attention to the NFL and Blackstone. Blackstone was the buyer of the DNA. They are the ones that bought the DNA from Ancestry.com. Okay. I know on the back end, the CEO was already charged with war crimes for the DNA and sentenced to death. I can't remember if the execs were sentenced yet, or if it was just the CEO on the back end. Also, the CEO of BlackRock was also sentenced on the back end, along with many other CEOs, including Jeff Bezos, and including Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. Many of them were already sentenced on the back end. So what does that mean? So let me talk to you guys about that. Because there's no more trials, it looks like there is other investigations that might be going on that we're not aware of. And once the charges come in through the military portals, through the intel portals, those are the charges. So once the charges come in, that's it. So these people do not get lawyers. They don't get legal teams. So it seems that these investigations were ongoing and already being carried out so that you would not have to deal with the trials. They're already sentenced. It means that they already have the tangible evidence, proof of them committing these horrific crimes. And if the police stations were charged itself, it means that that police station engaged in something so horrific that it was categorized as a war crime. So it's something where it was a conspiracy to defraud the United States of America in some way, or it was an act of or form of treason. Okay, so if the entire police station is getting charged and it's not individuals, then they engaged in war crime behavior, which means they did something really bad. I like, from what I gather, you are not getting charged or sentenced unless you did something so horrific, because these crimes are so bad. If they're being charged, for example, for murder crimes, or they're being sentenced to death, that means that they have already killed upwards of probably 8 people or something like that. Like, they've already killed a certain number of people in which they would not even be able to fulfill a life prison sentence for. Okay, so let's say life imprisonment is 30 years, so that's for one person. They have now killed 2, 3, or 4 people, so they can't even fulfill a prison sentence, so that they are automatically sentenced to death. So it is a form of the Nuremberg trials, where it is Nazi trials, except we are not doing the trials because of the infiltration with the technologies that I have talked to you about, because we're not able to actually successfully hold trials anymore on US soil because of the biological warfare, the biological terrorism, because of the endangerment of legal teams, of judges. So now we have been forced to war crimes with no more trials. Okay, so that's the category it's been put in. Now, in terms of Interpol is the international police. They were infiltrated. So a lot of people are asking, why have these people not been charged by the union? There has been an infiltration into the international police by, I'm hearing, Eric Prince and Vladimir Putin. So there are war crime charges that should have come in already for Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, Mark Milley, Mike Flynn, Thomas Bergeson, Elon Musk, Bill Barr. There might be more charges coming in, but that are being charged for war crimes against the country of Ukraine. So on the back end, those charges already came in, okay? Now, we have not seen those charges internationally because those systems, from what I have gathered, have also been infiltrated as well, okay? Because typically they would have been brought up on those charges. I have the tower coming in around that. So that's why we have not yet seen them go down for those charges against the country of Ukraine. And that's by design. That is intentional, because they have weaponized Starlink and other technologies against, I'm hearing, the EU and other countries from actually being able to move forward and prosecute these war crimes against Ukraine. Okay, so right now we have not seen justice globally or within our own country. So in terms of the declaration of war, these are the terms. Once the charges come in through the military portals and once the people are sentenced, they are supposed to be removed by force. And there is specific instructions on the kill order, okay? So the reason there has to be a kill order is because we're in a declaration of war, and there are a lot of neuroweapon contracts that Donald Trump and Jared Kushner and the Saudis have agreed on. They've made deals on invisible technologies. They've made deals on death contracts to carry out their Nazi one world order. And those contracts involve neuroweapons. And neuroweapons have been banned globally, punishable by death. They fall into the category of a war crime. They also are known to hire contract killers to go after Trump's blacklists. And all of these fall into the category of war crimes. So when a person comes in and gets sentenced, okay, through the military portals, then it is a kill order of a gunshot wound to the head. It's a different kill order because we are trying to do away with the technologies that have stripped us of our biological rights and freedoms, okay? So part of the war is eliminating the technologies that they have used to weaponize against our country, its citizens, and the world that have blocked us from justice. So these technologies in space, technologies linked to Starlink and their grid systems, have biologically obstructed our justice and have blocked our legal rights. They have violated our legal rights through the thought technologies. They have created technologies that endanger our protections. And so we have to come together globally against this advanced AI and these invisible technologies to remove them and dismantle them, or we will lose our freedoms and we will lose our entire race. So the other thing about the declaration of war that is important to note is that many of our feds and cops have already been compromised by this group. And so us looking to them to save us is not a position that we're in anymore. So once the sentencing comes in through the military portals, then the commands every man for themselves go into effect. So every American has the right to defend themselves and their freedoms against this type of AI warfare. So once these individuals are sentenced through the military portals, through me, okay, because I am command, any American can take action against these individuals without punishment. Our entire prison systems have been infiltrated by Donald Trump. Bill Barr infiltrated the prison where Jeffrey Epstein was located. I believe when they were quote unquote preparing Donald Trump's prison cell, that was part of an infiltration operation. I believe the prison cells where these type of people have stayed, for example, P. Diddy, these were used as covert operations to further infiltrate our prison systems and then weaponize the DNA against their victims to put them under illegal house arrests. Okay, I am a victim of the DNA technology and the false imprisonment by Jared Kushner. And I have gotten links to a New York State prison in Schenectady, New York, with also ties to a Manhattan prison and judge who sentenced the order. So the DNA technology is a weapon right now and was supposed to be fully dismantled and destroyed at this point in time, because you essentially can put anyone's DNA on an innocent person and they would be charged with these crimes, especially if they are being charged by a secret government like the Hiltons are operating, or any of the Manhattan elites are operating right now illegally with contract killers and Eric Prince death contracts. So right now we are in an act of war. It is something that everyone has to take seriously. Like I said, we cannot expect for all law enforcement to follow these orders and commands, especially if they have already committed crimes of martial law against Americans. I know that there are certain police stations that are being investigated and looked at. I know more charges are coming in every day for police stations that are not taking action to protect Americans against this deadly warfare. You know, I am working around the clock trying to educate everyone on what's really going on. I feel like I've been working on this for a long time. So many police departments have done nothing. Okay. And they have been charged with those crimes. Okay. Oceanside Police Department was charged with war crimes for doing nothing. Okay. When I went in and told them about all of these technologies, it looked as if they were looking at a list when I went in there, like they had my name on a list, and they treated me horribly. They closed down the entire police station on me. Okay. So there's other police departments that I have reported this to. There's also federal agencies that reported this to. Most of the, I want to say almost all of the trafficking groups have been fully infiltrated by Donald Trump and his teams. The FBI tip page was disabled the last time I went and checked on it to report a tip on trafficking crimes. I have been given intel that Andrew McCabe was the last acting FBI director, okay? And that was in 2018. So that's how far behind our country is right now in terms of justice. The Air Force was released from their duties. They were supposed to be stripped of their uniforms, military ranks. They were supposed to be removed from all of their locations because they're no longer a recognized branch for the United States of America. The Navy was ordered to govern the skies and take over all Air Force operations. All chemtrails were banned globally, okay? But within the U.S., they were fully banned. And anyone who has used or paid for chemtrail operations have been ordered on the back end to be sentenced for war crimes, punishable by death. I think they were already sentenced for those war crimes. If any pilot has gone up in the air with those chemicals in their plane, they have already been ordered to be killed on the back end, including the owners of the airports that they are flying out of. So that is the declaration of war. I do want to mention we entered into another declaration of war several weeks ago against George W. Bush and Bill Barr. They were already sentenced on the back end to death, okay, for their crimes and operations. Many of the commanders in the U.S. military have been sentenced to death for war crime operations and commands. It just feels like everything really is a mess right now in terms of where we really are. There was intel coming in today about the White House that these are not U.S. military that are surrounding Donald Trump, that this is a form of a militia that is working for him right now and protecting him. As far as the commands for sentencing, once you are sentenced, you are stripped of your citizenship, passport, you are stripped of all of your assets, bank accounts, you are stripped of everything. You are no longer recognized by the United States of America. You are supposed to be immediately arrested and detained, or if it's a kill order, then it has to be the gunshot wound to the head They are not allowed any protections or communications. All of their devices were ordered to be seized. They are not allowed to communicate with friends or family. They have to be cut off immediately from all of their communications. And any security teams that are getting in the way of these individuals who are already sentenced from being detained, they will then be charged with those crimes. And that goes for anyone protecting individuals that have already been charged. So many of their camps have already been charged. They were not initially charged, their camps, but because they continued to protect those individuals, then they in turn were charged with the same crimes. So essentially, anyone protecting Donald Trump is going to get charged with his exact same crimes, which are the worst of our country's history. And the same goes for George W. Bush, because he was charged with war crimes for 9/11. There are still charges coming in for the CIA that were in the force prior to 2001. They have been ordered to be released from all operations from the CIA on the back end. There are no more lifers. But there are still investigations into those individuals in terms of their crimes and what they were a part of in coordination with the 9/11 terrorist attacks on U.S. soil. There could be investigations also into specific generals for war crimes carrying out operations under George W. and George Sr. Bush for the Iraq War, Afghanistan. So there's going to be other investigations that are still going on for those crimes as well, because they further endangered Americans by carrying out these oil operations, and the U.S. military is not paid to produce oil deals for the Bush family. So those are all now going under crime operations, many of those wars. So those generals are now also being looked at as part of those crime operations to further endanger U.S. soldiers and Americans' lives for no reason. So as far as oil goes, we are moving to a new oil agenda, which is a corn oil agenda. That was the agenda that was put in place over a year ago. And George W. and his teams intentionally, I'm hearing, overrid those plans, which was for a sustainable fuel. And the reason they overrid it is because it was not going to be an industry that they could monopolize like they had before. It would be a shared industry for Americans to profit off of that would not force us to go to war. Okay, so working on healthier and more sustainable agendas, which is the opposite of the agendas that we have witnessed happening on U.S. soil under these false leaders. So right now, we are continuing to move forward with the declaration of war on the back end. And we are in an active war, as I mentioned earlier. This is a war for our freedom and for our sovereignty. It is probably the most important war of our lives. And it is forcing us to look at every part of our country right now. So I will leave you guys there. Thanks again for all of your likes, shares, for your support here. I greatly appreciate it. I'm sending you lots of love and blessings. If you guys are more interested in who I am, you can check the description box underneath the video. I also have other playlists kind of explaining everything and where we're at as a country. And I also have a lot of really good high quality content over on Patreon if you are interested in this type of stuff. Thanks again, and I will talk to you soon.